welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn Doors and Corners, I mean, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
I'm Zach.
And tonight, we are continuing our foray into Phase 1 of the MCU with the Incredible Hulk.
Just Phase 1? Man, I was really hoping we would just be going through all 22 movies of the Infinity Saga, Brian.
You know,
Surely
as much
we
as
can do that.
I'm sure certain listeners would love it if we just did nothing but the MCU, I like variety.
No, I couldn't do it either. I could not do it. Oh my god.
Yeah, we're going to be doing all of Phase 1 this year, but there will be even some breaks in there for anybody wondering. We got some other stuff going.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Tonight's entry is the 2008 Incredible Hulk. From the era of gritty reboots comes this one, starring Edward Norton.
Yeah, this was... So, correct me if I'm wrong, this was in development before the idea of kind of a joined cinematic universe was kind of really taken seriously, right? Wasn't this like kind of redirected a little bit, like mid-production, or am I remembering that wrong?
To an extent, yes. When they found out what they were doing with Iron Man and they had some faith in the Iron Man project, they were like, hey, what if we interwove these things to be a little bit more, to be kind of connected? But at the same time, you can't really say that it happened mid-production, given that there was production of a Hulk movie in one way or another going on since like 1994.
True.
Did you know that there was a Hulk movie to be directed by Joe Johnston, of
Next week's
Mummy? Yes, Captain America, the First Avenger. This guy, he was going to direct a Hulk movie, and they got so far into production, or pre-production, I should say. They had models, they had animatronics, they had a script, a full storyline. They didn't have an lead actor cast officially, but all rumors said that Johnny Depp had signed on for it.
Well, because this, I'm trying to remember.
It was like Superman Lives level production readiness.
Well, and I realized I misspoke too. I said next week because we're not. The next movies in the MCU is not First Avenger, but it will be soon.
Sure.
The house. How quickly did they start working on the next Hulk movie after Ang Lee's movie was released? Was it like just basically immediately?
Pretty much immediately. Because the Hulk actually, even though it is much maligned by today's standards and deserves some of it, the ever famous 3 minutes of transportation from one place to another of just continuous sliding scenes of, Banner in a wheelchair, to Banner on a helicopter, to Banner on an elevator, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Just 3 to 3.5 minutes of just dialogueless transportation. It sits in people's heads,
Yeah. That's one of those films I haven't watched that movie in a long time, and I remember actually liking it, but it's been years. So whenever we get to that one, it'll be interesting to revisit. Go ahead, though.
Indeed, I think it will. But that one did actually make a profit. Not a huge one, but enough for them to go, oh, we need to sequelize this thing. And then as the gritty reboot, as I mentioned earlier, was setting in with things like Casino Royale and Batman Begins, they were like, you know what we need to do on this one? We need to reboot this in a way that's darker and more street level and angrier and brawling, you know? Which the first one was pretty dark in some of its own ways, but it was overly cerebral. And didn't, even though it had some actually really good action, it didn't have the Hulk smash enough, you know?
Yeah.
Its third act didn't deliver mainly.
I do feel like it's a challenge to make a Hulk action sequence dynamic and interesting, especially if you're going with a type of Hulk that's, you know, not as in control, so to speak. I mean, it really depends on who he's fighting, I guess, because the ones that stand out are, you know, the moments where he needs enough focus to have a goal and be able to make decisions. When it's kind of just like the brute, it can be fun, but I feel like you have to be careful because it can get stale quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, especially with a character like the Hulk, who in the comics is virtually immortal in every single way. It's the Superman problem. But it's even more the Superman problem, or even worse than the Superman problem, I should say. Which, for those of you who don't know, the Superman problem is that when you have a character that is indestructible and all-powerful, how can you make a challenge for them? And, however, the key to Superman is making it just as much a mental and emotional challenge. However, when you have a character that is essentially just a beastly brute, it's even more difficult to write in something compelling and emotionally investing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, you know, this movie, and we'll talk about it a lot as we're watching it. You know, this movie is generally ranked near the bottom of the MCU. I mean, it's kind of down there with Dark World and some of the other, you know, it's funny. There's like the movies everybody agrees on in the MCU, and the movies everybody seems to, you know, agree on both near the top and near the bottom, and the middle is just a total. It depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever seen a list or a ranking that doesn't have this, you know, as one of the bottom 3 or bottom 5, somewhere in that rank. And I both agree and disagree with that, but it's what I was going to say was the getting Bruce Banner, the man, correct is such a huge part to me of getting the Hulk right, because you're not going to care about the Hulk smashing around and all the stuff going on if they don't make you care about Bruce. And he's a good character, but you have to be careful with those kind of people, and you have to treat them correctly in a story treatment, or else you can lose the humanity in the action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I very much agree. And this is my favorite Bruce Banner. I'm actually not the biggest fan of Edward Norton himself, but
he's one of those great actors, but not a great person.
Yeah, very dramatic, lots of temperament issues, supposedly. I don't know the guy myself, but I find that Mark Ruffalo actually kind of grates on me. I just not a big fan of his acting in general, and I don't like his weird kind of breathy voice. Oh, you know, I don't know.
It would have been.
I can't get behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of neutral on Mark Ruffalo. I think that the Hulk as a whole works in the MCU, but I would have really been interested to see Edward Norton and Robert Downey Jr. do some scenes together, because you do have two just really top tier actors. The dynamic would have been different for sure. It wouldn't have been as funny, but I think it
the
could
whole
have,
like science bros thing that's very popular with those characters. I don't think that would have existed. I think it would have been more like rivals.
Yeah, which could have been interesting. But because Edward Norton is funny. You're right. I've always gotten the impression, and I've heard many interviews, and heard listened to stories about him being very difficult, and he's just one of those just hyper dramatic. He's so creative. Yeah, a little bit of, but like he's just so into the art and just wants his story, and he wants to be in control. And he is. I will argue that he is a very talented actor, but he seems to just create drama around him whenever he goes on a movie set, and I can't imagine him being able to work well in the collaborative nature that you would have to have, especially when you got to the Avengers films. Let alone the individual movies, which the Hulk never got another one, at least as of time of recording.
Yeah, and he probably won't, but we'll go into that a little bit later.
Yeah, the whole rights thing with Hulk is interesting.
lots of stuff to discuss on this one, so I
Yeah.
am eager to get started.
Yeah, let's get going.
And just to recap on that, this is The Incredible Hulk, not The Hulk from 2003. This is The Incredible Hulk, like the comics from 2008. It is rated PG-13, 1 hour and 52 minutes long, directed by Louis Leterrier, and written by Zach Penn, starring Edward Norton, Liv Tyler, Tim Roth, William Hurt, and Tim Blake Nelson. Also with a couple of other fun little cameos here and there, which I'm a big fan of. And I would also like to point out that it written by this gentleman by the name of Zach Penn. Okay, this dude has written so much superhero stuff back in the day. Like, this is the guy who did things like X-Men 2, Elektra, Fantastic Four, X-Men The Last Stand, though he's not a big fan of that. And he said that he tried to make up for it with the video game, the official game, which was actually pretty solid. He wrote the story for the first Avengers movie. He did the superhero TV show Alphas, which is actually quite good. Most people haven't heard of it, but I recommend checking it out. And he also did the screenplay for Ready Player One and Free Guy. Heck of a thing. And it's just he has this kind of solid mediocrity to his writing.
I was just about to say there's some pretty good films in there, and there's some pretty mediocre films in there. So
yeah,
I mean, and there's not a writer on the planet that hits a home run every time, but that's the kind of writer that when you hear he's attached to a project, you're like, this could either be pretty darn solid or kind of forgettable.
This could be X-Men 2 or this could be X-Men 3. Let's see what happens.
And to be fair, I mean, there's so many other factors that go into what makes a movie amazing or not. But I mean, the writer is one of them. So it's not like you don't want to lay it all at his feet. And at the same time, you can't give them a pass for the sake of others. So it's always, it's a collaborative effort, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, as always, encourage you to watch this with us. Currently, this is on Disney Plus, even though it is still owned by Universal. They must have, I'm sure Disney paid a decent amount for this to make sure their MCU is as complete as it can be, although they're still missing some Spider-Man films. So anyway, we're going to hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey.
Yeah, get the Universal logo before we get the MCU logo.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. This movie fits so much as a Phase 1 Marvel movie, though.
Yeah.
Last week we had Ironmonger as the bad guy in the third act, right?
Yeah.
And it's just bigger, evil version of the hero. And then we have this week, and it's the Abomination, bigger, evil version of the hero. And then next week with Thor, there's Loki, who's just kind of more emo, evil version of the character. And then week after that is Captain America, and we have Red Skull, who's just the more Nazi evil version of Captain America.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you start to see a theme to some of these movies, don't ya?
Very much. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Thor, which is not a horrible film, but definitely had the best villain of all the Phase 1.
I put that up to the director. And the acting choices, because even though Thor was a little rough around the edges, and we'll talk about this when we get to it, the acting that the director, whose name went right out of my head, what's his name?
Thor? Kenneth Branagh?
Oh, come on. Yeah, Kenneth Branagh. Even in his most mediocre movies, Kenneth Branagh can bring out the acting in his people so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely
What do you think of this opening sequence, kind of recapping, almost like recapping a previous movie?
Well, yeah, it's odd because there's it's an intense opening here to immediately jump into. I do appreciate that, this along with, like Spider-Man does it later in the MCU. We don't need a full origin story. It's not the audience understands it. You do not need to tell Spider-Man's origin story, the Hulk's origin story, Batman's origin story. We get it. We've and the Hulk has honestly, only been shown once on film before this. But I think it's just
it's not interesting enough.
It's really not. It's just okay. A medical experiment, goes awry.
I
But-
mean, in the comics, it was never a medical experiment. It was always a different type of gamma-powered nuclear weapon.
Okay.
But I don't think. But I think there was something along the lines of not wanting to put more nuclear testing into movies done by the United States, given that they've officially stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to cause any problems there. Now, one of the things I did like about this opening, going back, is that you have this character of General Ross, who is still a very important figure through the MCU. Even if the actor, William Hurt, did pass away just 2 years ago, and has since been recast by Harrison Ford in the upcoming, time of recording, Captain America Brave New World. They have that moment where it shows him like bloody on the ground, and given the way that they had the character separated in one frame, the next frame he is moved over to lie on top of the unconscious body of his daughter. So they established that like why he would hate the Hulk so much, but they also established like his highly protective nature.
Yeah.
That like you understand why he's doing these things, even if he's not exactly the goodest of guys.
Yeah. Well, he's an interesting character. I mean, he is definitely got some layers to him. He is both your kind of cliche, military, industrial military
Cigar
complex
smoker.
guy. I was going to say, yeah. But I mean, like somebody who just really believes in the military, he's a soldier to his core. But that you have not only the scene on the ground, but you also have the scene later in the hospital bed where he is really trying to, and they don't even tell you that it's his daughter. I mean, I think you just understand it. Again, the story is pretty well known. But I love. I mean, there's the other hints that are kind of letting you know Hulk's been on the run. They give you the little teaser of Stark Industries, tech that they already have. So they're kind of seeding, a little bit of that bigger universe stuff. And then I did appreciate the immediate, the contrast, not the contrast, but getting into the Metronome and, ending it with the whole, what is it, 183 days of that incident.
Mhm.
It immediately catches you up to where Bruce Banner is sitting right now. And I do think it's an effective opening. I also like his
No,
dog.
I very much agree. No, the dog's good. I like that he's watching Sesame Street in Portuguese in order to help him help him learn better. Also, during that scene, we had a cameo from the actor who originally played the character of David Bruce Banner from the Incredible Hulk TV show that was there playing on the television. And yeah, I thought it was from The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and that was Bill Bixby. I was trying to find the name of it. It was a TV movie, apparently.
This guy that's like the trainer right here, just immediately, like, even though it's a tiny role, just he really is effective here at the beginning. Just the way his abdomen is moving, and just this is the intensity that he's got.
Yeah, this is well, for what he's a professional Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, and so he can actually do this stuff. And they just hired him for this moment,
It's
But
effective.
this movie is filled with small, super memorable little roles, at least to me. Okay? He has the bullies that he works with here, like this guy. I think that he's just fascinating and kind of hilarious. He's got this greasy little
yeah.
attitude towards him. And then there's the female coworker that he works with. I always remembered her for various reasons.
Yeah, this whole factory is interesting. I mean, I don't mean this like a disrespectful way, but the other guy definitely gives off a kind of small dog complex to me. Very well.
Yeah.
Or little dog complex. But yeah, no, she's
Dog,
very
yeah, dog.
no, she's very, just immediately got that very cute, memorable look to her. I love that they do have
She's a Brazilian model.
Okay, yeah, she's a very attractive woman. I do appreciate here that they're kind of immediately letting you know that yes, he really is still one of the smartest guys in the room almost anywhere, but he's trying to keep undercover, but he still can't help but to kind of, just help out here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. You ever worked in an industrial plant like that?
I have
Like
never been inside one. I'm like, I was about to say unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure. Uh,
everything is broken, and it's all held together by duct tape.
um.
Yeah.
So okay, and Ian, you are much more up to speed on comics in general. How easy is it for Bruce Banner to get hurt when he's not in Hulk form? I mean, is it only
Yeah,
that
it's
I like
actually
it?
quite easy.
Okay.
He can cut himself. Everything has to do with if he gets mentally riled up enough. Mentally and emotionally riled up enough in most cases. And anytime he gets mortally wounded, the Hulk will come out. There's this whole thing.
Because he can't like die, right?
No, he can't. There's even a official end of the Hulk type of thing where Earth had long since everything on Earth except for wild animals had gone extinct. And essentially Bruce Banner finally dies of old age and the Hulk takes over. And he just sits there in silence forever alone. And it's a very tragic and poignant end, and the idea is that the Hulk finally got what he wanted. He just gets to be alone, truly alone, forever. And he hates it.
I feel like I've seen imagery of that, like stills from that comic series.
It's classic. Very much a classic. This guy reminds me of like he's like a goblin man. Like genuinely.
Yeah.
He's like a little goblin man.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they really found some memorable, and they seem like they really, found some genuine, the ethnicities that they were going for. And I like that too. One thing that I kind of hate in a lot of, in a lot of the eras of film that I enjoy, which is 90s and 80s, every single actor is like a model. And that can get really annoying. It can really take you out of the authenticity. And I do like that.
I would.
In these days, that's gotten much, much better. And pretty much anything after the 2000s has gotten progressively better about that.
Yeah. Well, I venture to say that this movie, in terms of its casting, is absolutely wonderful. Edward Norton is not an overly attractive man. You have the one incredibly beautiful woman in here, this Mariana character, and that you have Liv Tyler, who is attractive. I've never been overly attached to Liv Tyler myself. I think that she is
well, she's
attractive, but she's not like a 10, No.
Well,
I know
she
that's
also,
probably superficial of me. But,
well, she has a very specific type. I mean, she works incredibly well as an elf. She has that kind of, that shape of a face. No, I would the same thing. I wouldn't call her a 10, but she's, I mean, anybody who said that they didn't think that she was objectively attractive, I think would be a little bit,
I think mainly it's
a little bit.
I see too much of Steven Tyler in her face, her father, and I am negatively attracted to Steven Tyler.
I believe most humans are, to be fair. So,
but either way, everybody in this movie is of a reasonable attractiveness, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, even William Hurt as Thunderbolt Ross is, just kind of just a gruff older man. I mean, he's not. Yeah, William Hurt's a perfectly good looking older guy, but he's not. Yeah, he fits into that same thing you're saying.
Yeah, like even later in the movie, we get introduced to Ty Burrell as Liv Tyler's fiance. Ty Burrell being most known for the dad on Modern Family, and he is the averagest man ever.
he really is. Probably as good as just your run of the mill dad.
I love this whole thing here. There was actually some deleted scenes. One of the things I spoke to Brian about before we started is the fact that this movie, I think would have been a lot better if they had included a number of the deleted scenes. There was an alternate opening, which I'm not the big fan of, that was referenced in the first Avengers film that we'll go over when we get to that movie, where he goes up to the Arctic and attempts to kill himself, and the Hulk takes over. It wasn't that good of an opening. But the rest of it, it was stuff like all that equipment he just used. It showed him scavenging and building that. And it wasn't that long of a scene. And, oh man, it was great. And I think that this movie would be much more fondly remembered if scenes like that had been kept in, because it was all those little character things.
Yeah, this is. I think that this movie. It's funny, we were talking about this when we recorded Punisher Warzone. That this movie really came out kind of right in an interesting time. Of, you were talking about the gritty reboots. It was such an intense like transitional time for superhero films. We didn't know the MCU was going to be what it was yet. But
Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah, Stan Lee. Of course, he's the one that gets the. I do.
Well, this is also somewhat of a reference to some of the stuff that happened in the Hulk comics, like She-Hulk. It even did happen in the She-Hulk TV series, which should burn. But his blood is very much craved. It's very dangerous. And it was a blood transfusion that gave She-Hulk her powers.
Yeah.
It was a form of a blood transfusion that ended up giving Thunderbolt Ross his abilities as the Red Hulk, and later gave his daughter the abilities of Red She-Hulk. But hopefully we don't end up seeing that. That'll be just annoying.
Tim Roth. He's another great actor. Another very, not the most attractive guy, but man, a good actor. I was gonna say though, go ahead.
Sorry, this black actor here. I've always loved this guy. He appears in a bunch of little small things, especially through this era, but he never was like a big leading man actor. But he has such a striking face. He's most known for getting kicked into a pit in 300. He's another one of those guys that I remember from this movie.
Oh yeah, I would say he plays soldier guy, mercenary guy. Angry diplomat. I mean, he's, he definitely has a type that he got cast for a lot, unfortunately. But he also got cast for it a lot because he was quite good at it. He was very, again, in his small parts, he usually was memorable in a good way.
I think I may have seen him as like a fallen angel warrior in some direct-to-Netflix movie, but I can't remember.
So, what do you... where do you think the era this was released kind of affected it? Because again, it is such an interesting in between. Where you still had the end of the Marvel era where you had the Punishers, the Fantastic Fours, and Electras, and X-Men was kind of going downhill, and then you had Dark Knight though, and the Nolan stuff coming out, and then you had Iron Man come out right before this, which was just such a lightning bolt in the superhero movie world.
Yeah. Well, Iron Man, the thing that Iron Man has that this one doesn't is style. It's not entirely without style, but Iron Man had such electric style and charisma oozing out of every pore, where this was a little bit more of like a, how are they going to think their way out of this one? Or are they going to punch their way out of this one?
Yeah. Because I think this movie, if you take out Iron Man, and the MCU, where that went, if you make this come out, if this exact movie had come out in 2006, I think you'd be remembered. If this
exact movie had come out in 2006, then it would be, I'm not going to say a classic, but it would have kickstarted something.
Yeah. I think it absolutely would have been
something big.
It would have been remembered as like one of the one of the Marvel greats. And if the MCU had still gone on and done its thing, I think that it would have been. Oh, sorry, I just saw the dead dog. Made me very sad.
It wasn't dead. It was very clearly a tranquilizer round.
Nah, it still makes me sad. Anyways, yeah, it really is a timing is everything, as we talked about in the Punisher films also. Yeah, oh man, this old school, those little. It's funny, whenever I see those types of cameras, it makes me think of the old the action film The Negotiator with Sam Jackson and Kevin Spacey. Do you remember that one?
No, I never saw that one.
Okay, there was a lot of scenes of the little snake cams. Anyways,
Yeah, I mean, there's as far as I know, they're still used in some instances
oh yeah,
today.
yeah.
You see, I feel like a breach and clear would not be smart in this situation. You know? um,
I do appreciate though that. There you go.
okay, it's memorable.
Yeah. I was just wanted to say, I do appreciate. I mean, you're right. Breach and clear might not be the best plan, but I do think that it was good that they went in and they just shot him immediately with like 4 tranks. That there wasn't like a let's stand here and yell for a minute and give him, potentially a chance to wake up and decide to get angry.
The first appearance of the Marvel Anonymous costume, a hat with a hood.
And of course, look straight at the soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in fight or flight. That's called freeze.
Yeah, which is bad. It usually ends up with you getting caught or shot.
Mm-hmm.
Although this is a decent little chase scene. I mean, you feel like the actors ran a decent amount in this. I do like anytime. It's funny. This makes me think of a little bit of a Jason Bourne influence, which was a big franchise at this time. Just the very claustrophobic city. The idea, like you're going to a non-Western country, and you're getting in this very tight confined corridors and buildings, and a lot of the natives are around. It's just confusing. I don't know. Do you see a little Bourne influence in this whole sequence?
Oh, definitely. The thing about it is that there's actually a little bit less shaky cam to it. It's actually a little bit less frantic. There's some shaky cam.
Sorry, that would hurt.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
I know, right?
going down like that, like just with no time to prepare yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Does the guy have a P90?
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm still like deep into SG1.
MP5s. I think one of the other guys. It looked like a Scar, but I don't think it was.
Yeah.
You would never have any type of tranquilizer round coming out of a freaking P90.
Also, I always find it interesting too, because it's not just his heart rate, right? Isn't it?
In this, they kind of establish it as his heart rate, which they never go back to.
About to say, because that's kind of never used again.
That was a very isolated thing.
Nope. Yeah, it's always been more about his state of mind.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's an MP5, but it is a very
heavily
decked out MP5 to where I thought it was an AR at first.
Yeah, it's got a lot of hardware on it.
G36 or something. He's like, hey man, I'm just gonna show my head so you know that it's me.
I do like the idea that a 4-star general is just like with in an ops team like in the city. That's a very comic book thing that would never happen in real life.
Unless he was like really invested.
I don't think he'd be allowed to. I mean, like, oh, it's this guy. That's right. Oh man, of all the guys to run into.
SpaghettiOs.
But he's been taking his Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes, so he's able to do a move or two there.
Just a little bit. Oh, okay. This is funny. So apparently, one of the reasons why I got confused about that gun is because it changes. He uses 2 different guns during that
in the middle of the fight.
When he first breaches, he's using an MP5A3. Later, he's using a UMP5. So they're both MP5s, but they're vastly different models.
Yeah, the armor got a little bit. 187. He's been running.
Yeah, maybe he's like my wife, who just their heart rates just get insanely high. Me, I have an unusually low heart rate to the point of where my resting is usually around 50 beats per minute.
Ooh, I wish mine was that low.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife is around, on average, 100 beats per minute. Mine is actually like on my paperwork when it comes to the like when I was trying to join the military as a low heart rate. It was one of the reasons why I couldn't. Just one sergeant who was just like, yeah, I see that. Do some jumping jacks right now. Do it. I'm going there. He's a bro.
It is interesting that they decided to go to the bottling plant again. I wonder if part of that's just wanting to be efficient with their set usage, but it's also a good set.
Yeah, I think that it has to do with being efficient with the set usage. One of these thugs, it was pointed out in a number of the retrospectives I watched on this, okay, that it's also a guy who was in X-Men 3 in a rather memorable role as Wolverine cutting off his arms, then his arms keeps growing back, and then he's like, come on, and then Wolverine kicks him in the balls. And it's a very memorable little scene. And it's one of these thugs. He just, a year after that movie came out, he just does this one as a little extra.
Oh. Yeah.
This is genuine kind of horror stuff right here.
Yeah. You would not want to get trapped in a... Oh, yeah, he's dead. There's no way he's alive. I mean, it's an MCU film, so he's,
No, he's dead. They've already established that the Hulk is a killer in this thing.
Yeah. Well, I just mean, like, I think of immediately, like, Corridor Crew doing their, like, if this was accurate based on the event that just happened. And just what would actually have happened to that guy's body if he was thrown like that in real life.
Their freaking R-rated Captain America Civil War opening.
Yeah, that was great.
Falcon decapitating those guys.
I do love that. Just that. Guys, you have nothing to deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do this. I mean, this whole sequence, it is terrifying. At the same time, I kind of like, I mean, I'm glad the MCU showed the Hulk out in daylight and had some good time with it. But I also think the Hulk really works well in low lighting conditions.
Yeah, I agree with that. I get that it's easier to do this type of creature in nighttime when it comes to visual effects and everything like that. It's really hard to get them in daylight correctly and look good. And they do both in this movie. So I think that this first one, with all like the teasing shots and everything like that, is kind of a way of saving budget, but while also giving us lots of action for the beginning and end.
That was a good shot of just the highlight, the shadow highlight, and the explosion.
Right? I feel like they give us almost like 10 different teases of the actual creature before we see it.
I still... Oh, that's all kinds of bad right there.
Right?
I do feel a little bit like if these guys have been briefed, why do they keep trying to engage with just small arms fire?
Well, maybe the experiences with the Hulk aren't fully understood. Maybe they don't know how bulletproof he actually is. The only, if you recall what Ross said about the creature, also later in the movie it does go over the fact that they kept some information about what he was to themselves. They didn't tell the team. So they haven't been fully briefed.
It makes sense, I guess. I do think his face looks pretty good. Like right there, I mean, he definitely isn't, later in the MCU, it's very much Mark Ruffalo's face. You can see it in the motion capture. This is I'm sure he was motion captured, but his face looks like it's entirely animated. But yes, I like his face in this movie.
Oh, I do too. The hair is wrong though. It doesn't match the actor at all. For some reason his hair is just different. But there's a they tried a new facial mapping technique for this movie that has never really been used again, and there's a good reason for it because it just didn't work out very well, where they sponged on not infrared but reflective material onto Edward Norton's face and then did a big performance capture rig over him. So his whole face looked like it was covered in glow-in-the-dark splotches. And so it would track every little movement that he made, and it was too much information. It didn't work out very well. Yeah.
I do appreciate here, like I was just the sorry, I'm like watching this and remembering. I appreciate that you were right, that these guys didn't really understand what they were going into. And so, and I appreciate the fact that if they didn't realize exactly what they're going into, if these guys were, tier 1 guys, that they wouldn't have just cut and run. They would have, stayed and tried to engage. And it didn't make the soldiers look like chumps, which unfortunately happens a lot in these kind of movies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's a 3-star general. For some reason, I was thinking he was a 4. All right.
I actually really like Blonsky. I think that he is a very understandable villain. Antagonist, I would even go so far as to say. Because he is very much the soldier, right? Mm-hmm. He's sitting here. He's a professional. He's doing his job. You can tell that he's very dedicated. It's not until he gets the super soldier upgrade, which, as we know from Captain America, if you're an aggressive person, it'll make you more aggressive. And you see that corruption in him.
Yeah.
Which was one of the more interesting parts of the She-Hulk show that unfortunately just wasn't... didn't make up for the rest of the show. But it was essentially the trial of Emil Blonsky.
Yeah. Oh, and I think obviously, the Hulk's the hero, the audience is, we want to root for him. He's the main character. And so the guy that's chasing him is kind of a villain. But especially at this point, there is no reasonable situation where any soldier wouldn't be like, oh, this is definitely a threat we need to take care of. And it's not like a personal thing. It's just like, yeah, if you ran into this, you would be understandably concerned and feel like you've got to take care of the situation because the Hulk is a problem. This is great. Sorry, I do appreciate just that they kind of let Edward Norton definitely seem just vulnerable. He's the idea that his pants don't magically still fit. Some of that kind of stuff. It's
but
good.
Yeah, just for some context there, okay? Like Guatemala to Brazil, that's massive, okay? Like from one to the other, that's several thousand miles. So that's how far he got in a single day. Single night.
Yeah. Well, he can cover some territory.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Roth has such an interesting just delivery. He's always, he's not like a physically impressive man, but he has this intensity in his face that's just undeniable. I remember there was a TV show he did like a long time ago, like Lie to Me. That was about that. He's just one of those intense eye guys. He can't help it.
Yeah. I think that he's one of the most believable like tier 1 operators I've ever seen in a TV show or in a movie. Because he's not Chris Pratt. He's not I actually meant to say Hemsworth, thinking of Extraction.
Yeah.
But he's small, he's wiry, but he's fast, and he's got that crazy intensity to him that just says, this guy is going to kill me if I move wrong.
Yeah, this is a dangerous man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once again, this new location, man, they really do a good job with the locations when they're outside of America in this movie.
They even do good jobs with the locations in America. I was being contrary.
Sorry, holding the pants up. It's a tiny moment of levity, but this movie does need little moments of levity because it's a pretty serious film.
Yeah, the Hulk has always been treated very seriously in movies and comics and everything like that. He wasn't even an Avenger until the Avengers film came out. He was actually like the villain of the first Avengers comic. He was being tricked by Loki into attacking people.
feel like there
which
was
is referenced in the movie.
I thought there was like a series of Avengers, like straight to video, like animated films that had him as part of the Avengers, but I could be remembering that wrong.
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, that's right.
But in the comics, he wasn't officially affiliated with the Avengers. He was actually seen as more of a threat to the Avengers until the movie actually came out.
That's right. So, yeah. Okay, I feel like an idiot because I forgot this little bit. That yeah, it was all this is all coming out of trying to recreate Steve Rogers, trying to find another way to get to the super soldier, which it makes sense that in the wake of both Steve Rogers and Red Skull, despite how badly that went in some ways, that the military would be, and the Russian military, as which revealed later in Civil War, and here that we'd be trying pretty much nonstop to try to knowing that it could happen because it was done once and to such a great result, like trying to do that again. There's no way like a military that had a taste of that wouldn't keep trying.
There's two things that the MCU loves. One, trying to create more super soldiers like Steve Rogers. And two, making Tony Stark the source of all bad guys.
Well, him or his dad, right?
Mostly him.
Yeah.
Like, all of the Spider... Like, Vulture and Mysterio and Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Ultron, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a running theme. He creates villains.
Well, I do. I always liked. I mean, it's not unique to the MCU. I mean, gosh, at the end of Batman Begins, where they tease the Joker, that great scene with, we start wearing body armor, they buy armor-piercing rounds. The idea of escalation, and then that scene with Vision, about just our presence invites challenge. That there is, I mean, because that is also a real thing. Like just throughout history, you can see that whenever there's a power that rises, there will eventually be a challenger. And as much as this is a very fictional version of that with superheroes, it is a principle that you can see done for real in world history.
Yeah, very much so.
But the idea that they're all from Tony Stark is a little bit fun. And the fact that there's, I get how much they want to use him because he's just Robert Downey Jr. was so much fun and it works so well. But I do wish, and Bruce Banner is obviously, he's also a very smart guy, but they really never let anybody else be as smart as Tony Stark in the MCU. And I do wish they had a few other.
Rocket Raccoon.
I'm not sure he counts. He's not a human. Although I do love the whole look on Earth. You might be smart, but by galactic standards,
you're only a genius on Earth, kid.
Interesting, just the styles of the shots here. It was just like that weird, they had it kind of out of focus. And it was, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very straightly shot film in a lot of ways. This is all very just like kind of standard blocking. I'm just kind of, back and forth point of view. I mean, it's by no means, like you were saying with Iron Man earlier, by no means is this bad, but like this kind of stuff is just very run-of-the-mill filmmaking 101 stuff. There's nothing about this that gives it energy.
Yeah. Well, the director here, Lettier, he wasn't a super experienced director at this time. It's not to say he was like inexperienced or something like that. It's just it wasn't something he did much before this. He did things like The Transporter and The Transporter 2 before he did this movie.
See, the first Transporter is a little bit of a cult classic in my mind, but it's not like, I would hold it up as some kind of amazing resume piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay.
This is referred to as Stanley's, very similar to Stan Lee's.
He's got a memorable face immediately, though, too. This guy, just this actor.
Yeah. I feel almost like this was originally written for Stan Lee, but Stan Lee's like, I'm not an actor.
Yeah, he comes in and does his bit, And it was a fun bit with the drink. So
Mhm.
yeah, this guy again, it's a small role, but it's memorable.
Mm.
What's interesting too is that Edward Norton is kind of restrained in this film. I mean, so many of his movies, he is intensely over the top with his acting style,
Right?
and
Cuckoo
he's just
Looney Tunes.
yeah, he is just kind of chill in this movie in a lot of ways.
I think he's trying to play himself as purposefully chill because he's supposed to be just so anxious all the time. Here we get another great cameo.
Aw,
Original Hulk actor
Lou.
Lou Ferrigno, who
Oh,
has been playing the Hulk and motion capture all the way up through, I believe, Thor Ragnarok.
how did I not know that? Seriously?
Yeah,
I
I could be wrong about up through Thor Ragnarok, but I know that it was in at least up through Age of Ultron.
He's somebody who every time I see him in interviews, he seems like a super cool guy.
Yeah, totally deaf. Absolutely stone deaf.
Man,
And he
the guy,
definitely lost his job.
man, he's still an impressive man. Even in his
Yeah,
like
he is.
just like regular non I'm on, film all the time shape.
Yeah. Also, we have this lab tech here who will be seen later. Also part of a deleted scene where that was actually really stupid, and I'm glad they deleted it, where he has some sort of weird prophetic prediction for Edward Norton's character. But this little nerdy guy here, who he gives the pizza to, is appears in all three of the Spider-Man movies, MCU Spider-Man movies, as his teacher.
Oh, this guy. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so sorry,
and
there is a
so
TV show called Silicon Valley that he was one of the main guys
oh
in.
yeah, I know Silicon Valley.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, but he
Norton, sorry, I just Norton 360. And just I don't know if that was on purpose. It's a little bit of a it's a little bit of a joke, but it made me chuckle. So,
I think it might have been both.
all right, go ahead though with your.
Oh, no, I was just going to say somebody asked Kevin Feige if they were the same character, and he was like, yeah, sure.
This
So
guy
that
goes
is,
on to become
canonically-
Spider-Man's his
Yeah.
teacher.
Goes on to become Spider-Man's teacher.
Oh goodness.
And every time I see this, it makes me want pizza. Like when he looks up and there's the guy like waving with the pizza, it just looks so good. And I'm like, man, I want that pizza so bad. Dang.
See, I wasn't
I can't eat it
hungry
right now,
just
though. I'm
seeing
very
it.
sick.
But to say when I just saw it, but now that you're talking about it, I'm getting hungry. So thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. This conversation thing between Mr. Green and Mr. Blue, what'd you think of that? Was that like
It's-
weird to you? Did it
No,
make you ask questions, or was it just kind of like, oh, I forgot that he was talking to somebody?
No, it's for me, and this is where the little bit of the movie cynic in me comes out. Where to me, it's like, oh, of course, it's going to be revealed to be somebody important later. It was almost just like all right. Watching this, I do feel like the movie is dragging a little bit here in the middle. I mean, we've got some character. I mean, you can't just have nonstop, but there's a lot of just kind of, all right, he's just checking stuff out and spying on his ex, and there's
Really,
again,
I actually really enjoy it. I think that this is good character stuff. I think that it kind of needs a slow moment here, but that's just me.
well, I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying that it's oh well, oops. It's just, and part of it might be watching it while trying to talk about it. That it's just, it took its time there because going all the way up to kind of him coming up, and he was we were talking about before we started recording the 3-minute transportation scene. But other than basically seeing Liv Tyler and showing that it's really easy to break into a university lab by just taking pizza. Up until right now, not a whole lot happened.
I suppose you're right. I don't know. I like it.
That's fine. That's nothing wrong with that.
I like his ingenuity. I like him going around like he knows people. He's learning things. I don't know.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it doesn't take away from the movie at all.
No.
I think it adds to it anyway. You see, don't like her acting. That might be part of it. She's so breathy.
Well, and I'm sorry for Liv Tyler fans out there. she's not an amazing actress. She got famous for doing some not it's not Kevin Stone, who's Kevin Smith. I'm close. She got famous
Oliver
for
Stone?
no. She got famous for doing some small Kevin Smith stuff with back in the day, and her dad's a rock star, but she's not by any means a bad actress. She's just I would call her.
No, I think she's a
average.
bad actress.
I
sorry.
think no. I think there are much worse actresses out there. I just think that she doesn't add much to anything. I think she just kind of does her thing and moves on.
Yeah.
Aw. We do get a nice,
I can see that.
embracing the rain. Well, because there's been
Very
plenty of
touching.
movies that I've seen her in that she did not detract. And to me, a bad actress is somebody who drags down what she's part of, and I don't think that she
And
drags
she-
it down.
No, in fact, she elevates it because she does have one of my favorite comedic moments in the entire MCU coming up here in a little while, with the taxi cab in New York.
Oh,
We'll get to that point.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
she's got those smart
know,
glasses on.
I was gonna say she actually looks really good at the glasses.
Yeah, no, she does. Also, it does look like the kind of glasses a comic book character would wear.
They do. You're right. Especially like a super smart comic book character.
Hmm.
I guess mainly the reason why I think she's a bad actress is because of Armageddon.
See, that movie is a movie full of really good actors in a movie that, as much as I love it, is objectively bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, she's definitely she's overshadowed by so many very charismatic, very good actors in that film. But I think of I don't feel like she drags this movie down. I don't think that she detracted from Lord of the Rings at all. I don't think that even back to a small movie, but one that I like, That Thing You Do. I don't know if you ever saw that, Tom Hanks directed
no.
film, where she plays the girlfriend of a one-hit wonder rock star. It's a fun little thing. So yeah.
If you look really closely on this label, you get an early reference to Captain America. The weapons plus are Erskine. I mean. So this is supposed to be. In fact, I believe that they even established the color of the serum in this one that they end up using in the other ones.
It's just
And Super Soldier Serum permanently becomes blue.
yeah. I do appreciate that. I don't know, they're trying to have I'm not sure how to say it. That their relationship seems somewhat plausible for adults too. It's not like, I think a lesser movie would have had them immediately in bed, or would have had it her be angry, or I don't know, they're having conversations. There's that embrace immediately at the beginning, and then there's just they're not jumping to cliches, which I appreciate.
Yeah. There's awkwardness. She's trying not to be a hoe bag and cheat on her boy.
Yeah.
But at the
Mr.
same
Dad.
time, it also needs to show that they're very much two people who loved each other very much.
Yeah. And honestly, when you get to that point, it's, even if you have a situation come up where it never gets to come back, there's always fragments of it left. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's for modesty's sake, but that seems like a really uncomfortable top to sleep in.
It's there's not a woman I know that would sleep in that. Although I do appreciate
And she's getting her lipstick, too.
Well, I was about to say, I do appreciate the fact that she's not perfectly made up. They're letting, I mean, you know how often you get that cliche, right, of women who sleep like they're, ready to shoot a photo magazine cover at any moment. Right. Not that they let her go full, without makeup, but they didn't fall for the trap of being totally made up. They kind of hit a middle ground there. So do you think that they jumped to this a little faster as far as, Ross letting him go through this?
No, but I feel like another scene establishing that he's going too fast with it would have helped. As I think that it should have had a moment where they're like, you need all these approvals. He's like, no, we're on the trail now. We need it now. And he like uses his power and favors to throw things around and get it done faster than it should be.
I do not like needles, and that. Sorry, just watching that, I got quite tense watching that.
Dude, I totally
that
understand.
spinal needle. He shoved that thing in there deep.
You need to, you need to. Like, this is Spinal Tap.
Yeah. That hat does not fit him well. I just have to
No.
say. Oh man, they do.
Also,
they do keep him looking frumpy, which I mean it actually works quite well for the type of character he is, and what they're trying to do. But they definitely don't try to dress him up and make him look cool. He's not the cool scientist in this one.
Actually, if you look at his clothes, all of his clothes are too big for him.
Yeah, which makes sense because he was trying. Well, the whole thing with the stretchy pants, right?
Yeah.
He just was like, the hat's too tight, and like, no, okay. It gives her an excuse to touch his hair, which that's always a thing.
He's just slovenly. Okay, so here we have something that's not explained in the movie. How'd the military find him?
Yeah, no, it's just totally out of nowhere. Now, is there a deleted scene that explains this?
There is.
Because this totally just came out of nowhere.
It was her fiance.
Oh, so he found out.
He found out. He essentially he called because he was worried. He didn't realize that he'd be sending an entire army onto his campus and almost killing students and all this stuff. And it has him almost like have a temper tantrum, but like a righteous temper tantrum on Ross. And it was very good. And it closed some plot holes. And it kind of established that he might be a character in the comics referred to as Doc Samson, who is a psychologist who ends up getting his own kind of super soldier serum to literally because he was so narcissistic that he thought that he could cure the Hulk, but in order to do so, he needed to be on the Hulk's level. So that way he could be his super therapist.
Sorry.
It's cheesy. It was from the 70s, but they've used it a couple of other times, and he's a very strong supporting Hulk character.
Okay. So I was just seeing the him swallow the USB drive was like, yeah.
It's smart. I mean, you think you should have other ended it?
No. He should have hid it in the book there in the library, so we could come back and get it later. This actually, though, I do feel like, I mean, she definitely she knows her dad. She knows the vehicle he's going to be in, I guess.
Yeah.
This is. Yeah. Do you know what school this was shot at, or is this okay? That looks like a fake shot for a second, the wide shot, but
isn't it supposed to be Columbia? I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is a great plan, guys. You should lock him in a room. You should really make him feel trapped.
So there's this thing, right? The scores in the original Avengers movies, the Phase 1 movies. We talked about this with Iron Man last week. And this one, they had really good scores with very specifically memorable character themes. This one, dun, 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 dun. It's that heavy theme. Sounds good. There's a drama to it that is almost deeply emotional. And they're never used in anything else. And I think it's a huge loss, especially for Iron Man and the Hulk, because Thor and Captain America mostly keep theirs.
Yeah.
Captain America's even goes all the way through to Avengers Endgame. But yeah. Did you ever see the Marvel What If series?
I saw the first season.
You remember the one where they kill the Hulk? It has Hank Pym hunting down and killing the Avengers. And
vaguely.
They kill him in this scene, but they use Mark Ruffalo instead, and Mark Ruffalo's Hulk.
And they actually kill him?
Yeah, essentially it has it so that Hank Pym got inside of him and used one of the giant man discs and hit his heart, so his
Oh,
heart enlarged, but his body didn't, and it blew him up.
okay. That sounds familiar now that you say that. So
Mhm.
here we get him the first time in full light. Now this was definitely like
Yeah.
they went with, he's got a little more of like a texture to him that like, at least in the first Avengers, we get there, they have Hulk be a little bit smoother.
Mhm.
This Hulk,
University of Toronto. This was the University of Toronto, apparently.
Okay. It's nice.
But
It's a
no,
cool
I
campus.
I love this. One of the things that they did for the production of this movie was establish that the Hulk has a set size. Like they ratioed every single bit of him, and they make a couple of comments about how they know all of his measurements. But he is solidly 9 feet tall.
It just takes that Humvee apart. Oh,
Dude, I love this action
yeah.
sequence.
See,
So many good practical effects.
Yeah,
Intermixed with the CG.
yeah, there is. But like, no, this is. I like the fact that I really appreciate action scenes where you can clearly track what's going on. That the actions don't seem. I mean, even though this is a obviously a superhero film, that it's not ridiculous like what's happening and how things. I do like the fact that he's reacting to hits even if they can't do a whole lot to him. There is still
There's pain.
there's still like an action, sorry, not an action, a reaction. So here we got like the kind of the first incarnation, right? This is like Super Soldier, serum like version 0.5 he's on right now.
Yeah. Which I love this little interaction. I think it's really well filmed. I think that the movements look good. I would love to have seen Captain America against the Hulk momentarily.
Yeah.
Something similar to this. Now, these are actually based on real DEW, directed energy weapons. They're sonic cannons in this, but they're based on microwave emission guns, which were experimented on for the use of crowd control. But then they decided to change it to sonic cannons because sonic cannons, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this is where I do feel like even though this is totally necessary, I guess, you have to escalate things. But this is where I think the action scene does change a little bit from being, just this nice, kind of clean, cool. But you have to find a way to kind of keep the story going. So I don't have a problem with it. It's just, it's all of a sudden you've kind of gotten more sci-fi because the energy required to do this. There's nothing on a Humvee that would even come close to that. Although we do have, it's Stark Tech, right? So it's kind of the magic, the magic word for how these things work in the MCU.
Exactly. They've got little arc reactors in there or something. But showing the whole thing about the angrier the Hulk gets, the more powerful he becomes. I think that's important. I do like that. I think I'm going to use this time to go on a little rant, okay?
Go for it. I enjoy your rants.
I think that one of the biggest problems that the MCU has had is the underutilization of the Hulk. Part of this is because they're not allowed to make another full Hulk movie due to the movie rights being owned by Universal and not by Disney. Very similar to how Spider-Man can't be used by Sony. I will pause a moment for this because I like this little interaction that they have here. I think it's great. You start to see him go a little bit off books. You get to see this here, and
oh,
you feel it, don't you?
That hurt.
For those of you not watching, Blonsky, the villain, just got kicked into a tree like none other.
Yeah, that answers the question at, if you got push kicked like Cap does so often in the MCU, but by the Hulk and not Cap, what would happen? And the answer is you just kind of turn into a pulpy mess against a tree.
Right. But yeah, you can you can see the moment here with what's his face, the fiance or boyfriend coming up, and he's like running up there like, oh, how would he know what's going on there? How would he know Betty's there? And it all ties back to a scene that takes place later that's been deleted, of the fact that he's the one who turned them in. Cool scene there. Cool scene.
It's a cool scene. There's I do immediately just hate the fact that the Apache helicopter has a very impressive cannon. It's mounted down under the chin. It's not on one of the stubby wings. So they got the armament wrong, but it is a cool scene.
Yeah.
Interesting here, though, too, that they are just immediately jumping to the Hulk. I mean, not being full, Professor Hulk aware and smart, but Hulk is kind of without explanation in this film. He recognizes her. He's protective. He's not angry idiot Hulk.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Because
I kind of like it. So the moment she's involved, he becomes much, much calmer.
Yeah. Well, because in Avengers, they kind of they kind of go back to the idea that, well, the Hulk he's out of control, right? And then they have that that famous "I'm always angry" and he now is in control versus when he loses it up in the carrier, the helicarrier.
Okay, so I was wrong. The scene is in here. This is the scene I thought was deleted. It's a different one later when she breaks up with him over this whole thing. Or he breaks up with her. There's a conversation later that was deleted between him and Betty. So that was my mistake. That was in the movie all along.
Okay.
Oops.
Well, and I'm sorry, I'm distracted in my head by what I was just... explain to me, is there a contradiction or an incontinuity? That's not the right word. Anyways,
I have the flu, so incontinence is on my mind right now.
Gotcha. But is there an inconsistency with the Hulk in this film pretty much always having some measure of awareness and control versus in Avengers on the helicarrier, they imply that, the Hulk is always, kind of out of control, and it's a big deal when he gains control for no apparent reason? Is there an explanation?
One of the things that they establish, quote unquote establish, okay, in peripherally, like it's not blatantly stated, but it's in the subtext, as it were, is that when he's forced to become the Hulk very suddenly and against his will, he is in far less control, like on the helicarrier. And when he chooses to let the Hulk out, like in the Battle of New York, he has far more influence. And you see this in Age of Ultron, and pretty much that's the only other times.
Interesting, too, I just noticed in the close-up shots, they're showing like he's all cut up, like he hasn't healed.
Yeah.
He's mad at the sky.
I do like that. Yeah.
But it's interesting.
He's very much an animal.
Yeah.
He's reacting.
But it's interesting that they're showing him like... Sorry, it's weird to me for some reason that they would show him with wounds that haven't healed yet. Because I get that he can take damage at a certain point, but he heals pretty fast. So would he still have...
he tends to have a healing factor. This is the one where this Hulk is very different from the other Hulks that we see before and after. And a large part of that is his reactions to things and people. And also, I lost my train of thought, so ignore that last sentence I just said.
It's all right.
It's really different in the way that he's portrayed, because it's showing him here. He is cut up. He is a little hurt. And he would be. His healing factor hasn't totally kicked in. But that changes. We only see him scratched up, hurt, pierced, and things like that, I think 2 other times in all of the series. And he heals really quickly from those.
Yeah.
So I like this rendition of the Hulk better. I like him a little bit vulnerable. I would compare it to time of recording, the brand new trailer for Superman, James Gunn's Superman, where it opens immediately with Superman being beat up in a Yamcha pose in the Arctic. They're establishing that this is a character who everybody knows is indestructible, but you're showing, oh, they're not as indestructible as maybe you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do, it's interesting back there on the cliff, there was an interesting mixture of where like the CG looked really solid and other, shots where it looked a little bit plasticky, I guess. Yeah, they were
It's
struggling a
really
little bit.
hard to avoid plasticky when you're dealing with water effects
Yeah.
and intermittent lighting effects.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sympathetic, especially given the technology they had in 08, but yeah.
And the budget. Don't forget budget.
Yeah, this is back before they knew MCU films were, well, not new, where they most likely they were going to be big, and so they all had $200 million budgets. Now it is.
Yeah. Now, this budget did get, I'm not going to go ahead and say out of hand, but it was more expensive than they originally intended it to be. But it still made money. It just didn't make as much money as they wanted.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I have memories of interviews and behind the scenes things that I should have revisited. But I know there was a combination of Edward Norton not being able to come up with a working relationship that could continue, the studio. But what were was the other reason that it wasn't successful enough for Universal to push ahead with it's another solo film after this, but also the MCU really wanted him in Avengers. Go ahead.
So according to the stuff behind the scenes and interviews that have been done since, is that Edward Norton was really into this. It was rough for a little while, but apparently they worked through it. Louis Leterrier has established several times that even though they had gone through some rough patches, they worked it out and actually worked together really well throughout filming and marketing. And he really liked working with him, and he thought that it would have been great going forward. The rumors that had gotten out into the press and everything caused so many problems that Universal didn't want to risk the Hulk brand running away from them and didn't want to work with him anymore. And it didn't earn enough to greenlight a sequel. So when they wanted him for the Avengers, they couldn't necessarily afford Edward Norton, so they went with Louis Leterrier's first choice when originally casting this with Mark Ruffalo, because he had been busy filming something else.
Yeah, I remember reading that he was it was something that people wanted before Edward Norton took the role, and then things went around. But it's, I mean, the MCU is far more good than bad, and it's kind of easy and sometimes fun. Sorry, I appreciate that they have the detail here that she's using a pair of like office scissors on his hair. It's one of those little details that help, like, we're not breaking continuity here, or like breaking the circumstances that why would they wouldn't have anything else. Sorry. Anyways, there are things about the MCU that I kind of I would love to see, like the alternate history version. Kind of would love to see the alternate history version of Edward Norton staying in this character and some of the other choices being different. But
right.
at the same time, you start tugging on those threads and you have no idea what they would do. And the MCU, for all of its flaws, is still one of the coolest cinematic achievements that's ever happened. So I always try to be very careful before I actively say I really think they should have done this. It would have been better, because you just never know. Again, there's so many moving parts to that kind of conversation that it's hard to predict exactly how that would have ripple affected, the whole thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, come on, we're gonna watch them bang.
We're just gonna watch him beep. I'll be right back.
Go. Yeah, sorry, I always, especially like your very PG-13 love scenes, they always tend to just make me laugh, because they're like trying to be all, sexy, but
Edgy.
But they really can't, because one, this is a movie that they know is going to be marketed to kids, and also, it's just not what these kind of movies need. But I mean, this by no means is like egregious or like something that's like a big detractor. But
I mean,
I
you
love
get
the
like
idea that
a thigh squeeze right there.
yeah, you get a little, he's got nice legs. But I love the idea, like, dang it, I can't even have sex. My heart rate will get too high. Like,
And I like her reaction.
it's
It's
okay.
nice to see sex positivity from women in movies.
Yeah, she's
Um,
not gonna shame him.
yeah, and then this whole thing, she's just like, "Oh, it's Blonsky. Okay, does he have next of kin?" Also, this keys you in a little bit to like how Captain America fares,
Yeah,
because he gets the crap down him a lot, you know.
yeah. His body recovers quite well. And this is
Chelsea,
still this is still technically an inferior version of the serum, right?
yes. Um, you can already see the physiological changes going on because they made a point of seeing him with his shirt off earlier, and he looked like just kind of a normal guy, which a fit guy, but nothing special. But now you're seeing these like striations of muscle underneath. He has a defined six pack and all this stuff.
It's the first time I've seen Edward Norton in a shirt that fits right there. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. He's a skinny boy. But yeah, he's like, you can't use any of that. Well, you can use most of it.
Yeah, it's like you can't have any of this. Oh, well, you can have
Yeah.
this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
I mean, I do appreciate that they're kind of a little bit of a, he's been on the run for a long time. He kind of understands how it works, and there's a little bit of just the, just insider there. And then, the offer to sell something.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a pretty diamond. Now, is that supposed to be a necklace that he got her or from her dad?
No, he specified that's all you have to remember her, so it sounds like it was probably an heirloom from her
Mom.
mother.
Her mom, yeah.
I don't remember if. Oh, I never got to finish my rant from earlier. I'm going to.
Finish your rant, man.
They've misused the Hulk so badly because they have two things that they could have done that would have been so much more interesting than some of the things that we got, especially if they decided to do a She-Hulk thing, right? Which they did, but they did it badly, in my opinion. The Hulk should be a legitimate antagonist or villain. There's two different versions I specifically think of. One is called Worldbreaker Hulk, and the other is called the Maestro. The Maestro is an alternate future Hulk where he's the ruler of a planet after a gamma bomb war. And then another is the other one is actually where he goes to space, has a wife. This would be a continuation of the Sakaar storyline from Thor Ragnarok. And essentially, his wife gets killed, and one of the other aliens blames it on the heroes from Earth when it was actually himself who did it. So Hulk rallies his whole army and goes to Earth to conquer it and punish the people who killed his wife. And it's a full power Hulk like we've never seen him before. Almost like a Professor Hulk gone bad. And it'd be so cool. And it wouldn't have to be a full Hulk movie. It could have been an Avengers movie. It still can be an Avengers movie. But they just haven't done it. And they've introduced Hulk's son that came out of that storyline, but they turned him into a absolute mockery of his comic book self. I'll never get over that.
Yeah, he was what? He was shown briefly in She-Hulk, right?
Yep. And should have looked like Conan the Barbarian meets the Hulk, and instead he looks like a carton of soy milk.
Let's say Soy Boy came to mind.
Correct.
I love the it was a little bit ago, but the very of this era, that scene of like the email flying through the internet and like being intercepted by Shield and the whole. It's just I always think it's just fun, the creative ways that filmmakers will try to make just run of the mill technological things appear cool. Like it's an email. Yeah, he definitely looks a little more ripped off, not ripped off, ripped up there and in shape. But so this is the second. Wouldn't tell it's
Dosage.
the second dosage.
And yeah, that second dosage is a big problem.
Yeah. Doesn't do a lot for his skin.
No, no.
I appreciate that
Well, it's
the for sale sign's still in the back of the truck. Again, there's little bits of continuity. Okay, so I'm like for some reason forgetting this exact part. Okay,
and they're
like,
smuggling themselves
yeah.
into New York.
That's right. You get just some fisher guy. I mean, I feel like
Mhm.
getting into New York City undetected would not be difficult.
Right?
There's so many ways in. How many bridges? And yeah, it's not like it's a closed waterway. Anybody can just, drive over. Or, go ahead.
This is the joke I really love. Like this, me and a metal tube in the most aggressive city in the world, But then,
this is another just very memorable, one-off character. This driver.
yeah.
Oh goodness.
And then this part with her yelling at him. I love this so.
Oh, that is good. That is genuinely good. I had forgotten how funny that was.
Yeah. And the follow up here.
Yeah. You zip it. Oh, that's a genuinely great little sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no problem believing that there are cab drivers like that in New York City.
Oh, dude, this cab driver is ever. Oh, I love this actor so stinking much.
He's got such a distinct face.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm not crazy, right? He was in Green Lantern, wasn't he? Like
Green Lantern? I don't think he was in Green Lantern.
Was he not in the horrible Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern? I feel like I could be wrong.
Maybe he was. Let me find out.
He has such a distinct face.
He does. I mostly remember him from the movie. His name's Tim Blake Nelson. I mostly remember him from the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
And have you ever heard of the Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
Yes, I've seen. That's one of those movies. I think I've seen that entire movie in clips over the years, but never sat down and actually watched the whole thing.
He is such an incredible comedic actor. I love him so much, and he's so good in this role. And they're supposedly bringing him back.
I do love that you're very on the nose that he's wearing a blue sweater over a blue t-shirt. And he's Mr. Blue.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Blue. Yeah, that's true. So, no, he is not in the horrible Green Lantern movie. What he is in is the horrible Fantastic Four movie from 2015.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I was like, I know he was in a bad superhero movie. I did expect Mr. Blue to be a bigger reveal.
Well, the reveal is a little bit more for the hardcore fans, where they're going, wait. His name is Dr. Samuel Stearns? Because Samuel Stearns was a lowly janitor in a toxic waste facility and he was one of these people who these days would probably be classified as having autism. He was not good in school. He was kind of a Forrest Gump type.
His name is a very Stanley name, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Samuel Stearns, and he ends up being exposed to gamma chemicals, and he becomes super duper smart. He's known as the Leader, and he is the Lex Luthor to the Hulk's Superman.
Okay.
The Abomination is the Hulk's physical rival, but the Leader is his true nemesis.
We just got this under plastic thing. All right.
I love this whole setup. It's so 70s feeling. It's so retro feeling. And it kind of gives you this air of distrust,
Yeah. Like, it's just old enough to make you worry. But again, if this is, a university setup, it would be older for sure. I would not. Yeah. You'd have to really put me at ease to make me volunteer to get strapped down in a room like this.
Right?
Oh, man. Stupid grad students.
Oh, you know what's interesting? The pizza place owner from earlier, he voiced the Hulk in all of the old 60s Hulk cartoons.
Interesting. So they basically got all the Hulks in this movie.
Essentially, yeah.
Ah, sorry, dialysis. God, what is this?
Wow. What is this? The
Dark Ages? Yeah, you got it.
Sam Elliott expressed interest in reprising his role as General Ross from the Hulk, but they went with William Hurt instead in order to distance it from the 2003 movie.
Yeah. I mean, you could have him read the white pages to me and I would be okay with it. So, but I get why they don't want to have any attachment to that film.
Well, one of the producers described this movie as a requel, kind of a reboot / sequel. They still wanted elements, enough familiarity so that it could feel like a sequel. There's some legit body horror in this sequence, man.
Yeah, this is actually some of the best effect work, I think, the movie. Oh man,
Up till now, we haven't actually seen him transform or detransform. In fact, this is the only transformation that we see in the entire movie.
Yeah, the rest of it all happens off screen.
Mm-hmm. In a smoke cloud, or in a hole, or something like that, or in the darkness.
Oh, right there.
Mm-hmm. I love this whole thing about him being enamored with the power of the Hulk. And another thing that I like about her as a character in this is that she's not superfluous. She's genuinely important to the plot in every conceivable way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they actually do use her.
Mm-hmm. Which is something that the MCU movies did better than the majority of superhero movies of the time. Or just in general.
Like using the female characters?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
And certainly it's more than just like bait, Like Mary Jane gets kidnapped 3 different times in 3 different movies. And that's like her whole role is being the girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, that...
I don't know what. This reminds me so much of the first X-Men Senator Kelly Blob.
I was just thinking, sorry. I swear, I'm not just saying that. I'm literally like thinking the same thing. Like, this really reminds me of early 2000s X-Men and the senator who turns into water. Just, I think it's just that skin stretching with a little bit of translucence.
Yeah.
Still got a little bit of blue vein going on there, just for fun.
Right. I mean, if you've ever seen somebody with that throbbing vein in their forehead, it can look a lot like that. I love this.
Oh, he's great.
So
Pulse came from. Okay, I'm actually kind of getting into this now, like as far as like having trouble talking because I'm enjoying watching it. His performance, he brings an energy to this film that it has not had yet.
Yeah, enthusiasm. This life where everybody's just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Roth has definitely some energy, but he's not on screen enough. But yeah, this guy's like, oh, he's into this. This is awesome, and that the audience needs that. The audience does need that given to them a little bit, even if they're enthusiastic going into it. A movie shouldn't count on that to carry the weight of the film. The movie needs to do the work itself also.
Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. David Duchovny was strongly considered for the role of Bruce Banner.
Is that Angel? No. That's the guy from X-Files.
Yeah. I was just like, what?
Sorry, no. Who's the other dude?
David Duchovny. Mulder.
Mulder, yeah. Sorry. No,
who's... yeah, you're talking about yeah, I know who you're talking about. The one who Christopher Nolan wanted for Batman so badly that he delayed the filming dates 3 times until he realized that he didn't want to move from television to movies. Dang, his name's leaving my head. I need to find that now. It's gonna drive me crazy.
It's all right.
David Boreanaz.
David Boreanaz. Not even close.
But genuinely, Christopher Nolan wanted David Boreanaz as Batman for Batman Begins so badly, he delayed filming and pushed the budget for offers, and David Boreanaz kept saying no.
I'm trying to
Like,
imagine, the acting difference
mind-boggling.
between David Boreanaz and Christian Bale as far as acting goes. My
David
goodness.
Boreanaz is a great actor.
He's fine, but he's not Christian Bale.
Yeah, but I think he would have been a better Batman than Christian Bale.
Ooh, spicy. Okay, we're gonna have to remember talk about this when we get to those. This is a good.
I think Christian Bale's the greatest weakness of those movies. Fight me.
Okay, how did they track him again? Did they explain that? Because now the military's just found him again immediately. Did they
No
explain
idea.
that? And
I'm
I just
assuming
missed
some
it.
sort of facial recognition. No, I don't think they did.
Okay, this is one of those movies where just magically the military knows where you are.
I mean, yeah, just a little paranoid.
I love that they fired a tranq dart out of a Barrett 50 cal.
I mean, low velocity, large bore. That would make sense for a tranq dart. You know? I don't know. That's my. You need a large bore. So.
Yeah, it's just
Possible. Anticlimactic. He's so angry.
he is. He just wants a good old fashioned fight.
And he's so sweaty. Oh, they give him a shock blanket. William Hurt's so good. There's something about it where he seems like a bad actor sometimes, but he's that way all the time. And you realize that he's not a bad actor. He's just that way all the time.
Yeah. No, he's the type of actor who, when he's in the right project, he shines. But he's unfortunately been in a lot of mediocre projects. It's funny because he's an Academy Award winner, isn't he? I'm pretty positive he is.
I don't know what it was because the only other movie that I really remember with him in was Lost in Space.
Yeah, that was not. I mean, I still think of him as Duke Duke Leto from the Sci-Fi miniseries.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they really used that in marketing. I mean, that's what I remember the Academy Award winning because they were able to put that on the marketing for that miniseries.
Did they imply that he just killed her? Or did he just whack her over the head?
I think he's whacked her. I don't think he's killed anybody yet. I think he's just, he shoved Liv Tyler hard and hurt her head. And I really love this.
This is a great interaction.
Oh yeah,
it's just like you have the crazy, but then you realize they got matching crazies.
Well, I love too that this guy's curiosity and just his intensity is enough to overcome his fear in this situation.
Yeah. An abomination.
Little on the nose, but
I love it. Well, at least he's a responsible doctor.
And you've given it. So, okay, quick, just because I like the military stuff. This helicopter is one that is really, Hollywood loves using it because it has a really cool silhouette and profile. The military really doesn't use it anymore that much. It's actually quite an unreliable helicopter. But
what is it?
It's the Sikorsky. It's called the
Sikorsky.
Yeah, it's a Sea Stallion for the Navy. It was it was used like Tom Clancy had it. It's famously on the cover of Clear and Present Danger, and it was used extensively. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't. It was extensively used by the military, but it's been retired for quite a while. Not completely retired, but like greatly. But like Michael Bay loved to use it in the Transformer films. This film, obviously used it. It's one of those that you see it a lot because it has this kind of brutish strength about it as a helicopter. It just looks very impressive.
Yeah.
But it's actually, you won't find it in the military very much these days. This is again, an interesting. Oh man. Okay,
Here you have foreshadowing that has yet to pay off
His brain is getting bigger.
Kevin. But hey, that's also why he is returning.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has been cast in Captain America: Strange New World. Strange New World? No, that's Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Brave New World.
Brave New World.
Captain America's Strange New Worlds. Captain, who is this patriot? Sorry. This whole scene was a little weird to me with these soldiers. It felt, the found footage feels not too bad, but like, I don't know.
I get that they're kind of almost trying to replicate what they did in the bottling factory with the Hulk's first appearance. Kind of that, glimpses of him, soldiers. I mean, it's almost like they're kind of trying to recreate what they'd already done once.
Yeah, and a little bit Cloverfieldy.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, now they're in New York. I mean, it's the most famous city to blow up, or tear up with monsters.
I hate New York. As we talked about last week in Iron Man, I'm so glad that they had it in like Malibu, someplace where it's like not just every Marvel character kicking around the same stupid city. I hate New York.
Tell us how you really feel, Zach.
It's your burn. But yeah. This portion, I get what they're building to, but I think it goes on a little long. We don't need to be following all these cars through Harlem and knocking things over. And
I mean, I do like some of the distant wide shots of the Abomination stuff, but yeah, they're doing a lot of setup here. Well, not setup. That's the wrong word. Stakes building, is that the better way to put it?
Yeah, especially since he's like just murdering people. Poor hot dog stand.
Aw. I was
really
Go ahead.
I was really disappointed that he didn't have his little frilled ears.
Did you like the redesign in She-Hulk of him at least?
I did.
Okay.
And apparently they were going to go with it in this, but then they were just like, that would give the Hulk too much purchase, and he would just pull them off. And I'm like, hell yeah, pull off his ear, bro. Also, this right here, okay, do you know what this is? Do you know what this weapon is?
No, I don't. That's
because it's a freaking toy that's been spray painted. It's a Nerf gun.
Okay, about to say, I mean, I know they're going for some kind of a, rocket launcher-esque thing, but as far as I can tell, that is not a real gun in the United States Army's arsenal.
That is a Stark Industries rocket launcher, otherwise known as a Nerf Titan mock-up.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Love the Humvee.
In a
Man, yeah, if you're in one of these cars, yeesh. This Humvee backing up with the broken tire and everything. I mean, there's some... I do feel like the Abomination would have caught up with them much faster than he did. Like it takes him too long to get to this Humvee at the rate he was moving.
Yeah. The slow descent into madness for Blonsky's pretty good.
That's a little bad CGI shot right there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it really was.
But his face looked very toy-like all of a sudden. Come to life right there.
Yeah. It's the glossy nature. They're making him kind of slick. Yeah. Last time I was in New York, I kind of broke Harlem.
Yeah.
The events of this move were actually heavily referenced in the Netflix TV series Luke Cage.
Well, it makes sense, right? Be very remembered.
Place in Harlem.
Yep. I do really appreciate that despite recasting, that the MCU didn't try to just ignore this film by even keeping with William Hurt as the character through Civil War, and I think he had one other small appearance, right? Besides Civil War, was it just that one? But,
there was this. There was Civil War.
He was in. I think he was.
There
in
was Infinity War.
Yeah.
He was in Endgame. And
was it just at the funeral, or was he in more of Endgame?
Yeah, he was just at the funeral.
Okay. Oh, we have the dramatic kiss to fall.
I love this transformation though. I think it's a fantastic one.
So it also is just that the antidote just flat up didn't work.
It never does.
Yeah. So why did they bring him back in the lab? That is great.
They needed to administer it a couple times. They needed to administer it mid transformation, I think was the point.
Ah.
Okay, so yeah,
See-
General Ross, so he was incredible. Hulk.
See, this is a much better way when we get to one of these days when we get to Thor Ragnarok. I like that movie very much, but there's some parts of it where I feel like they let the humor really undercut the drama. And one of those is I hate the whole, just Banner just hitting the Rainbow Road.
Really? That's one of my favorite jokes. I laugh
just-
every single time.
It undercuts the drama so much for me. But this was a little bit. This was better, in my opinion. I like the little bit leftover bit of shirt, that little detail.
Oh yeah, no, I love this Hulk. I like this fight. I think this is a solid ending.
Yeah, the Abomination does look better all of a sudden. Like they got his face straightened out a little better in this sequence. I mean, it's still not comic accurate, but it looks better than he did in his, with that. The whole flying towards each other with the punch thing, though, is a little. I don't know. It's very cliche, big powerful characters. It looked almost like a Matrix inspired shot.
That makes sense. But at the same time, it's not something we saw a lot before this. I think that it came a lot after this. Especially in the wake of like Thor movies and Godzilla movies and such. Yeah, one of the big things about the Abomination versus the Hulk will always be stronger than the Abomination because the Hulk, he grows stronger the angrier he gets. Whereas the Abomination is a set strength level, but he keeps his intelligence.
Yeah.
So it creates a kind of evenness between them of ferocity versus brains. I mean, yeah. You have this here.
Ooh.
Good kick.
Yep. Well, and a lot of it is also just being crazy strong isn't everything. Knowing how to use strength. Like if you actually gave, a character like the Hulk or any character at his power level, like if Superman was a martial artist at the level of Batman, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about being, but and that's a way, and I think it makes sense in storytelling that you want your invincible, super strong guys to not be also really good fighters. Because one, why would they ever become good fighters when they're invincible strongmen? And two, it is a way for a character who's not quite as strong to believably have at least some moments where they could do something. Because if you weren't quite as strong, but you really understood how to fight and how the physics of physical combat work, there's a situation there where you could end up with some interesting. Ooh, that looks painful. Anyways, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I always found that moment kind of funny. It's like weirdly out of place, but I like it. It's like that slow-mo and the music cue. Also, I just remembered he was digitally de-aged for a scene in Black Widow. General Ross.
Okay. I saw the movie once and kind of forgot about it.
That's because it's the worst MCU movie by like a mile. I'll always remember this scene because I remember being in the theater and watching this. I'm like, okay, plane has crashed. You have a really striking open rooftop here. Like, this is a boss arena. This is where the whole rest of the fight's going to take place. You can just tell from a glance.
Yeah.
Like, look at this thing.
Oh, yeah.
It looks
totally.
like something out of a Daredevil movie. That soldier who just got totally red-shirted.
Yep. Of course.
Like, of course. Only the two named characters are still alive. And she's just got a nice little abrasion. She's fine.
Yeah, and he just needs an aspirin. And he's good to go.
I really like it when there's just a little bit more, you know?
There, I wish the Hulk's hair was less.
Apparently, throughout most of it, they were going to be doing like a crew cut on him. But then the director was like, "No, I want him emo, I guess."
Yeah, every now and then the way it like hits his eyes is just like, all right.
Yeah, he looks. I don't know. It's like sad boy hair.
Yeah. Interesting that the Hulk was like almost reluctant there to fight again. Yeah, like the actual like the subtitles said like size.
Mm-hmm.
Oh hey, he's got a machine gun.
That's a minigun. Actually, one of the more accurate miniguns in movies. Like miniguns tend to be really inaccurate in film.
Oh yeah, no,
and that one was actually like quite good. I love that. Like he uses the bone to stab him in the chest there.
Yeah.
You get the green blood, and like you see the emotion channeling the rage. I think that's necessary.
Yeah.
To kind of understand how the character works. This interaction here is one of my favorites. It's so over the top. It's so gross, and I love it. It's perfectly Hulk.
Yeah. Wasn't there a that was great. Although I'm pretty sure she still would have died. I'm just saying.
Or at least had her eardrums blown off. If it's strong enough to remove the oxygen from the fuel, it's enough to remove skin from her face and eardrums from her head.
Yeah. I've got a chain.
All right. All else fails, use a weapon.
It's kind of cheating,
What kind
right?
of chain is that? Does that even exist?
No, that is a ridiculously no. I mean, the only kind of
an anchor. What's it doing on top of a freaking?
I'm about to say the only chain I can think of that human beings make that would be able to do this would be a boat anchor, like the kind of anchor you would find like on a cargo carrier,
right?
Ooh, yeah. So I feel like too this is. I mean, I like the general setup for this fight, but it definitely feels like a mixture of the better fights we would get, later, and still kind of that early 2000s. It's a mixture of like some really good CGI moments with some rough ones, and it just
you see, I'm not overly worried about the CG because at the time it was good, and right now I'm kind of it's of its era, but I still like it. I still think it looks really good. All the emotions are being conveyed. That is probably one of the most brutal moments in the entire MCU. He just pulls his bone out and stabs him with it.
Yeah.
It's gross. It's disgusting. And it's just this movie went to certain lengths that I love more than what we get later. Also, I'd like to point out that was Lou Ferrigno's voice of Hulk Smash.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it's a decent end fight. I'm not trying to say that about it, but it also just very much makes me think of this era of films. Like I said, this does feel like a movie that is firmly right in the crux in between what the MCU would become over the next couple of years after this, and what the Marvel universe had been up until this point.
Yeah, I think that this movie was very much attempting to be in fact, I know it was a correction of the 2003 Hulk, where essentially they just like wanted big angry action Hulk, but they tried to take it just a step further with the PTSD and accepting like that the Hulk is as much a part of him as he is of it type of thing, and they're not two separate entities.
Yeah.
And I like that. Yeah. I think it's good. I don't think it deserves to be at the bottom of the MCU pile. No. Lower third, maybe. definitely middle, you know? Um,
I think
because thinking of all the movies that we have now with Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man Quantumania, The Marvels, Thor 2, Thor Love and Thunder, like this.
well, there is the heart of a really good movie in this, 100%. And
Yeah,
I think this is the kind of
similar to
movie.
like The Eternals.
Yeah,
There's a
It's-
really good movie in The Eternals.
yeah. I think that this is a movie that was trying the right things. I think that it did, it was really trying to make Bruce Banner as much the character as the Hulk. It was trying to be a little more brutal, which the Hulk needs. The Ross, right? Eddie
Mhm.
Ross. She's a useful character. Like there's a lot about this movie that I think if you had a director with a little more kind of sense of style and vision, and just a few tweaks here and there, I think you could have had this movie very easily, jump up to one of the greats.
Yeah. And again, if I urge anybody listening to this and yourself, Brian, to go look at the deleted scenes.
Yeah, I need to.
I think that they really add a lot to the movie. Some of them are good that they're deleted. Others, I think that they should have kept in. I'm fairly certain that that was actually an expanded scene where she breaks up with her boyfriend. And there was a little bit more closure to her character. But yeah,
Do you find it interesting that they never found a way to bring her back in anyhow, in any way in the MCU? Even like to really, I'm
yeah,
trying to
they
think, I'm
even
trying to think if they
recast
even
her in What
mentioned her.
If.
Huh.
Yeah, she
Well,
hasn't
because
really been mentioned. And then they tried the whole Black Widow and Hulk thing that was just
yeah,
Joss Whedon having his head up his own butt.
yeah.
A nice little reference to the Hulk TV show, putting his name as David D. Because for some reason in that show, they thought Bruce sounded too effeminate, so they renamed him David.
You appreciate that little moment there. Giving
Yeah.
her back her necklace.
This was supposed to be a lead up into the Avengers, as there was going to be a little bit more of the Avengers initially assembling in the original script in order to take on a more villainous and vindictive Hulk.
Because the idea here is that he's like working on controlling it, right?
Yeah. This is essentially the end credits scene, except it's before the credits.
Yeah. And this was filmed very last minute, wasn't it?
Very. And that is an actual cocktail, by the way.
Like green something. What is that?
Mm-hmm. It's something that they made up for the movie, but then they released it and was just like, this is the Hulk shooter or something like that.
Oh gosh,
I think it has absinthe.
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember this being a big deal, just
Yeah.
because having him pop up here, even though it doesn't, set a whole lot up, but just
Mhm.
his presence lends a little bit of credibility. Sounds like I'm insulting the film. That's not how I mean it, but it does lend a little bit of credibility to this film as part of the MCU.
Yeah. And given that they weren't able to move forward with it by the time Iron Man 2, which is the next one to come out, like the Avengers Initiative had essentially been canned by then, they put out a Marvel one-shot starring Agent Coulson in order to explain why that scene was there, but it ended up being defunct. Like, they made a little short film to explain why this scene is superfluous.
Huh. Well, because it always struck me later that Tony's the one. Like, I mean, they obviously wanted him because for the audience, but Tony wasn't the one putting the Avengers together. I mean, that should have been Fury.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously,
Okay.
right, after the immense success of Iron Man.
I really like this movie. I don't think it deserves the bad rap. Just to kind of wrap up here, to save on time. It's not the shining best, but it's not horrible. Didn't make enough money back. Its budget was somewhere between 140 to 150 million dollars, and it only made back 265 million. So,
Yeah.
given the whole like double your budget equation, not great, but enough to keep the MCU chugging along. Or not even that; it just kind of blended in with the early highs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
Mm.
because I think that it's interesting as we go through phase one here over the next couple of weeks. The phase one has a lot of almost nostalgia attached to it at this point because
Mm-hmm.
there's phase four was kind of way more misses than hits, and it the characters that we love the most in phases 2 and 3 all got their start in phase 1, so we kind of look back on it well. But it's, I mean, it was an uneven. They were trying stuff. They were it was a work in progress for sure, and I'm glad they stuck with it and made it happen. But yeah, I completely agree. Iron Man. Wow. Sorry. I'm staring at the Disney Plus telling me we should watch Iron Man next. I'm like, oh, we just did that. The Incredible Hulk is not anywhere near, Winter Soldier level filmmaking, which is, the first Iron Man, is it just has a flavor to it that's so good. But by no means is it the bottom of the bunch either. I think that that's also unfair. But I also get that it's a movie that you kind of don't think about a whole lot other than maybe like, oh, it could have been better, or there's some interesting behind the scenes drama. There's not a lot in the film that people just immediately like, you can just recall it in your mind. You know what I mean? At least not as much. And a lot of that comes down to character stuff. And it's weird that, I was talking about at the beginning of this, Edward Norton's such a good actor. And I stand by that statement, but he was kind of unremarkable in this film.
Yeah.
And
he was a little bit sullen.
Yeah. I think that if he had made maybe some different choices, brought a little more, and he didn't play the character badly. Like I said, he did it perfectly good, but it wasn't, he didn't make it, again, he had the following act, Robert Downey Jr., and that is, you got to bring something special. Because he
had no charm or pizzazz.
Yeah, and I actually think that the MCU got a little bit too carried away in kind of the flavor that Iron Man set up as making, trying to make part of that into everything. But at the same time, you do need something. And, again, this is just, it's an unfortunate combination of directing choices, acting, character choices, timing coming right after, the first Iron Man. There's a lot of things there, but at the same time, all of that does not make this a bad movie. I would never agree with anybody who said this is objectively a bad film. It's not. Is it like an amazing film that just deserves to be talked like? No, but it's not a bad movie either. It's a way above average film. And that still sounds bad, but that's where I would rank it if I was going to put it in a category.
So how would you fix it?
So, well, I kind of touched on it too. I think, as much as I'm not in love with Mark Ruffalo either, I think he did manage to give Bruce a little bit more of a memorable, charm. He's funnier. He has those little moments where, he just kind of looks at you and makes, he seems more in the comic book world, just the way that he plays it. And I think Edward Norton could have done that if he had wanted to, but decided not to, chose not to. And there's, so I would have given Ed Norton, I think he's still, is perfectly capable of playing the character well. I would have given him some character notes. I mean, again, we're talking about fix it as in not like redo the whole thing, right? We're talking about like in the framework of the movie that exists. Yeah, I would have just made some pacing choices. I would have explained a little bit more. I would have had more in the middle of how the military is, kind of keeping track of Bruce. I would have made, had a little more of the I would have had a scene where the boyfriend, and you said you pointed out that there was a scene after that whole action sequence in the middle that
No, I was wrong on that. I misplaced the two scenes. They did have the scene where it reveals that he turned Bruce into the military. That
Yeah.
was there. I thought that was a deleted scene. That was me misremembering.
Okay.
But they have a scene of him at the end with Betty, and it offers a lot more closure to that, explains a little bit more of his reasoning, and actually sets him up as a potential future character. But it's and I remember sitting there going, okay, this makes the story feel more complete.
Yeah.
When
I think that
watched it.
I think that they need to tie up a little bit. So I would have, a little more with him, a little more of the leading up to, finding him. I think if the audience had been kind of waiting for the military to catch up with Bruce at the university, instead of kind of just them talking and walking through the grounds and all of a sudden seeing the soldiers, I think there's a way you could have made that a little more effective. I also would have given. We touched on this when we were watching it, but given at least one more scene between Thunderbolt Ross and is it Blofeld? Wow, how do you say his name?
Blofeld?
Blofeld. That's a Bond villain.
Blonsky.
Wow,
Emil Blonsky.
Blonsky. Would have given them at least one more scene, kind of connecting the dots of, I'm going to give you this experimental serum. I think a little bit more exposition about where it came from and kind of what was going on there, a little bit more to kind of help the audience would have been beneficial, made that a little more fully fleshed out, because they kind of jumped from, here's this guy on loan, and then, we just there's not a lot of good connective tissue there. I think they could have fleshed that out a little bit better. I think they could have trimmed some fat in some of the action scenes a little bit, especially at the beginning of the last one, and maybe had I don't know. It's a kind of movie that I think with a couple tweaks, and just as I think you could have just shot it with a little bit more energy during the non-action sequences, with more of the character stuff. I think you could have just added a little bit more style, a little more flavor to it. Doesn't have to mean you go and copy Jon Favreau's style from Iron Man, but I think you wouldn't have to massively change this film to shoot it up the ladder quite a bit as far as rankings go.
Yeah, I could see that. No, and I'm very much with you. It's, in my opinion, I think they should have added in some of the exposition that they cut out, and then they should have like trimmed some of the fat, as you put it, in terms of pacing. And I honestly believe that adding a little bit more energy to Norton's appearance, not appearance, portrayal, performance. That's the word, performance. Would have just given the movie a little bit more of a live wire. Maybe even introducing Stearns earlier, because he was so fun. I love that actor so much.
If they had
Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, I think especially considering that he didn't have. It's not like Bruce Banner was. It was it's not like he was talking to Betty the whole time, or it wasn't one of those kind of reveals, right? Where it was we actually showed this character at the very beginning. You didn't really when you have it just be a guy. Go ahead.
I think what they could have done is actually have introduced him as the guy handling the super serum.
Yeah.
For Blonsky.
Had more of a connection.
Incorporated him there. Yeah, had a little bit more of a connection, a little bit more of like why Ross would be dealing with this guy, and how it's just like he knows that Ross wants to dissect the Hulk, where he thinks that it's beautiful and he wants to see more of what it can be, and so he's willing to kind of like break those rules and go behind the back. I think that incorporating his character more throughout the movie would have been a better choice. Maybe it would have taken away from their, grand designs of introducing just, okay, here's another character type of thing, and it's not all interconnected and convenient, which I understand.
Yeah.
Not wanting to always have everything be interconnected and have hanging a lampshade on everything, but I don't know. I think that his presence specifically as an actor would have been better.
Yeah. Well, it would have.
This is one last thing for me.
No, go ahead.
This is way too big of a change, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. In that, I wish that they had used somebody other than the Abomination. I think that the Hulk needs to be pit in one of his movies against a very different type of physical threat than just, another Hulk. they tried it in the original Hulk and it didn't go super great. But having something like the Absorbing Man or Zaxxas or the Leader, I think would have been much better.
Yeah. Do you think part of that comes down to they wanted something very simple for the audience to understand? They wanted an enemy the Hulk could punch.
And yes, and I think that it was probably budgetary as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the others, they can find a way to make them punch.
Yeah.
But
I think that there's, that's a basic Hollywood note. I feel like, I mean, Superman's dealt with that. We want a fist fight. People want to see that type of very direct physical action, and sometimes that works great, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. The first phase of the MCU had a lot of that villain. I mean, it's kind of a famous thing, right? That Marvel in general had struggles with villains, and especially with casting great actors to play bland villains. It's amazing how many world-class actors they got to play bland villains. But anyways, that's a conversation for another one. Anyway, we should wrap this up. This has been fun. I mean, this is one of those movies I don't revisit as often as the big MCU films. There's so many movies in the MCU that whenever I do revisit, I tend to gravitate towards kind of my top picks. This will be the first time I've kind of gone through them in order since I was showing them to my kids. Because my kids were just getting old enough to get into these movies right around when the first Guardians movie came out. And so I had to kind of get my kids up to date while also fighting the fact that not all of them were really into it. And so there was, I saw every MCU film in theaters up to Eternals. That was the first one I had not seen in theaters. But it's interesting to go back and to see these in order and talk about them. And, there's obviously, these are films that have been, take your pick. There's a million, podcasts and YouTube videos about them that exist. So I'm not sure, there's always the challenge of what we were going to add, but I think that it's interesting on a personal level to talk about these in order with you and to watch them in order, because there definitely was growing pains, but that's part of what made it exciting also, that they were figuring stuff out. They were trying stuff. They had some missteps, but they kind of kept going. And, ultimately ended up with something really special when you put all these together, and it'll be exciting to go through.
Yeah. No, I don't think I've watched them through in order since just before Endgame, actually. It's a lot of stuff to go through, and there's just certain ones that I skip because I'm just like, meh, I don't really want to watch that one again.
A lot of movies.
My wife and I have been going through some of them just because I want to watch superhero movies. I want to watch Marvel movies. And so we've just been jumping around, picking the ones that we want to watch, even though it's totally out of order. We literally watched the Captain America movies backward. Because we were just this one, okay. Well, why don't we just watch the other one? Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Well, we'll be back next week with Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2, which is towards the bottom.
It's a tiny preview of my thoughts on that one. It's such a weird thing, because Iron Man 2 to me almost occupies the same space as Age of Ultron, where yes, it deserves to be lower down, but there's also parts of it I really like. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, same.
But we'll
save that for then.
We'll save that for then. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow, that room will